Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vital MX pre-game show. What an action-packed episode we have for you this week. This is, of course, your one-stop shop for news from the Super Motocross World Championship, MXGP, and various national championships. More on those at the end of this show. First off, let's look at Jet Lawrence, who took another incredible win in Birmingham, Alabama. Jet led from start to finish, and as you can see from the graph on screen, he has increased his laps led to above 100. Most interesting here is that he has led more than triple the number of laps compared to his competitors in the 450SX class. Now, it's worth noting that the laps led total that the AMA releases does not include Triple Crowns, so Anaheim 2 is essentially struck from their record. We have included Triple Crowns here, hence why these numbers are slightly different to what you will see on the AMA results sheet. We felt it was important to include every event. Of course, why ignore Anaheim 2? A lot happened there. It was one of the most exciting races of the season. Now, if you look at this line graph on screen, it shows just how much Jet has figured out the consistency game, and that is more concerning for his competitors rather than the laps led. Laps led ultimately mean nothing if you do not lead the last one. But the fact that Jet seems to have smoothened out since Detroit, he has not had any crazy outlier results like we saw in San Francisco, for instance. That is going to make him incredibly tough to beat, and that is why, although he only has a 13-point lead in the championship, it feels much greater. It feels as though the window of opportunity has closed for his competitors. He's leading more laps, he's figured out consistency. Where can his competitors possibly make the difference? Well, we know that Triple Crowns have not been too kind to him in the past, so let's watch closely in Indianapolis this weekend. Now, Jet Lawrence was not the biggest story to emerge from Alabama's protective stadium. That was in fact Hayden Deegan, who was involved in multiple incidents across the event. We're not going to get into those here. That has of course been covered in many places on different media outlets. Instead, let's take a look at the penalties that he received. First of all, he was docked 2 positions in the 250SX main event. On lap 1, he cut out the double following the first rhythm section. He gained multiple positions, but was eventually docked 2. The AMA deemed that to be a fair penalty. And then also Hayden was fined $1,000 for his actions on and off track after and during the 250SX heat race. He of course was caught in that first turn incident with Seth Hammaker. I'm not sure if this was shown on the broadcast, but those riders were down together in turn 1 for more than a lap, and that entire time Hayden was just yelling and gesturing towards Seth repeatedly. That of course carried over into the paddock after the heat race. The AMA deemed that that was a code of conduct violation, and so he was fined $1,000. Somehow, I feel as though Hayden Deegan will survive and be okay. Now, let's travel south to Patagonia, Argentina, where round 1 was held at the fabulous Villa La Angostura circuit that has hosted MXGP since 2015. This is heavily rumoured to be the final time, however, so we won't see that beautiful track again. It's due to be flattened, according to reports from the locals. Jorge Prado, Roman Fevre, and Tim Geiser were your podium finishers in the MXGP class. Prado came out firing, using the intensity gained from his Monster Energy Supercross adventure, and went 1-2 on the day. It was not quite the results that grabbed headlines, it was more the conviction that he rode with. It was a powerful performance. I would say, as someone who has witnessed 95% of Jorge Prado's professional races, that that was the best he has ridden in his career. A warning shot to his competitors, perhaps? Roman Fevre was on top form, just a little off of Prado, and Tim Geiser won the second moto and was clearly capable as well. The question marks hover above Jeffrey Hurling's head. He was down in 8th overall and just wanted to escape the circuit healthy. Why? Well, he had a scary incident with Ivo Monticelli in Saturday's qualifying race, and there were so many injuries in that qualification heat that Jeffrey deemed it was better to strive to leave in one piece than force the issue on a track that is deceivingly slick. Yes, it looks soft, and it is soft on top, but beneath that volcanic ash, it's a really slick track, and that catches riders out year after year. Speaking of MXGP injuries, yes, many riders left Argentina walking wounded. First off, Jago Geerts crashed on lap 1 of the qualification heat and suffered multiple injuries. What were they? Well, first of all, his left elbow was dislocated. That was put back into place at the track, and then a scan showed a fracture of his elbow as well as his collarbone. Not great for the MXGP rookie, who has had a tough time of it in the last couple of years, losing world titles in the worst possible way. I honestly question how his mental state is, because these knockbacks are piling up at quite a rate. Now, not great news for Belgian fans, because not only did Geerts get injured, but Brent van Donnik also went down on lap 1 of the qualification heat and broke his femur. Now, MXGP fans will know that Brent broke his femur last year as well, so he's had a really tough time of it lately. To make matters worse, this is potentially the worst possible place to suffer such an extreme injury. It takes roughly 30 hours to travel one way to Patagonia, Argentina. Imagine doing that travel day with a recently repaired broken femur. Ruben Fernandez, last year's MXGP winner in Patagonia, Argentina, was also missing. He damaged his ankle in the qualification race. Ruben is expected to return in Spain. There is no structural damage to the ankle. It was just deemed unsafe for him to race and too big a risk. Why do more damage when there are 57 motos left to run in the 2024 FIM Motocross World Championship? Before we move on to some other interesting tidbits, it's worth noting that Kai de Wolf won in the MX2 class after receiving a bit of a gift from his teammate Lucas Koenen. Koenen was leading the final moto and crashed 2 corners from the end on the final lap. Kai, who was poised, relaxed, measured, different to the past, was more than happy to take advantage and ride past for the second Grand Prix win of his career. Koenen crashed in Moto 1 as well and withdrew with a damaged thumb. Most did not expect him to perform as well as he did in the second moto, so that's promising. By the way, the Koenen brothers are slated to come to America in 2026, but there is a chance that could be pushed forward to 2025. Watch this space. It was also announced in Patagonia, Argentina that MXGP will be introducing an electric class in 2026. This will follow a similar format to the EMX classes. It will be a support class alongside MXGP and MX2 and run at select rounds. One would think that Stark and HRC will be the first to sign up, but Stark have responded to that announcement with a press release of their own stating how dissatisfied they are with that decision. Stark are adamant that they must race alongside the combustion engines and they do not want there to be any separation. The press release is quite forceful and really underlines their concern about the decision that Infront have taken. I myself see this as Infront meeting Stark halfway, but as I mentioned, Stark are very set in their ways and forceful with their ambition to take on combustion engines. Speaking of Infront Moto Racing, CEO David Luongo will be present at the Indianapolis Supercross. Why? Well, he is in the United States scoping out venues for the 2025 Motocross of Nations. It will be in America, that is fact. What track? It will be between Ironman or High Point, but in all honesty, it seems extremely likely that it will be Ironman. So, mark your calendars. It's definitely Matterley-Basin this year. It's likely to be Ironman next year. And finally, building on the news about Stark wanting to race, Ducati will race this weekend. Alessandro Lupino will race the Desmo 450 at round 1 of the Italian Motocross Championship. This will mark Ducati's competitive debut in motocross, and truthfully, Lupino should win in that series. So, don't be surprised if you check back into the Vital MX pre-game show next week and find out that Ducati is undefeated thus far in their motocross outings. We'll have more on Ducati next week because I recently sat down with Paolo Ciabatti, the head of the off-road program to discuss rider signings, their plans for America, team options, and more. Paolo comes from MotoGP, so he was much more open with sharing information, and I'm sat on a lot of information that you will be excited to hear. That will have to wait for next week though, because we are out of time. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support. If there's anything else that you would like to see on the Vital MX pre-game show, please just let me know.